Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So we are in chapter 9. And we were going to do verse 15. And I thought we are kind of in the middle of the chapter. I'll summarize it a little bit so we don't forget the context, where we are and all that. Occasionally it's good to summarize. So this chapter started with Krishna Bhagwan literally advertising this knowledge to Arjun, get him excited that I'm going to declare to you this greatest secret. That's why it's called Guhyatam. He said, secret meaning it is not easily available to understand for everybody. That's how we have to look at it. And profound knowledge combined with experience and all that, he said. And then he said many other things. It's Pavitra, it's Uttam, Pratyaksha, all those things. And then he told him about his supreme nature, revealed the supreme nature to him, which is beyond the manifestation and world, Nirgun, Nirakar, Roop, that kind of thing we have to understand. And then there were those two verses where he said that nothing exists in him. They were a little confusing, but we went into detail what it means. That means that nobody can touch that particular state, the highest Brahman. Nothing contaminates it. That's how we have to look at it. But with his own power of Prakriti, he projects the world. So the world is more like an illusion and it's an appearance. But that Brahman is the one that sustains the world and maintains it and then absorbs it back into him. So all that we understood. And then he also talked about that he takes the avatar and, and then Nikhilanandji was explaining that how we are also like Brahman only because the essence is the same. We have forgotten our own identity. So then he said the people who don't recognize this, the divine nature of Bhagwan and assumes himself to be a limited being as though he's insulting Bhagwan, or disrespecting or disregarding. And then there were some other aspects to this whole verse that, if you see Bhagwan only in one Murti or something, that's a problem. And when the Bhagwan takes avatar, you don't recognize him as that Brahman, that's a problem. And then you don't see Brahman in people, that's a problem. So all that, we did that. And then not knowing this nature, what happens is that these people, I need to mute something. Okay. If you don't recognize this Brahman this way, then you take refuge in the negative Prakriti, which could be Rakshasi, Asuri, Mohini Prakriti, and we saw all the detail. And basically what that is Rajasic and Tamasic. Because we have everything in us, all three, Sattva, Rajasic and Tamasic, but these Prakriti is more in the category of Rajasic and Tamasic. And then that creates a false notion, attachment to the body, and gives us rise to sorrow and pain, according to Krishna Bhagwan. And that is what is called sansar. But those people who recognize a higher self, who understand who God is, and then take refuge in the Devi Prakriti, good qualities, values, sattvic qualities. So then they, worship him. And then just to understand this and remind ourselves that this is these three expressions of Prakriti are in all of us. The Rajogun, Tamogun, and Satogun. So we have to just hang on to the Satogun. That's what it is. And the way Nikhilanandji explained, it's the same ladder. You can go up or down. So this Prakriti has all the masala in it. It's up to you what you want to do. And then he was explaining that how, Tulsidas ji in the Ramayana, he called it Maya, we all heard of Maya. This is a Shakti of Bhagwan, Prakriti. So there are two aspects of Maya. One is Vidya and Avidya. So Avidya Maya and Vidya Maya. So Avidya Maya binds and Vidya Maya liberates us. So it's a Prakriti ka sahara lekar we can go higher. And then Bhagwan said that those people who choose the good or who take refuge in the Devi Prakriti, they are called Mahatmas. And these Mahatmas, once they know Bhagwan and take refuge in the Devi Prakriti, then they, with a single pointed devotion, they worship me. And then he also used the word Gyatva. Gyatva is like proper understanding of the nature. That Bhagwan is the source of all creation and he's imperishable. Those were the two words he used. And then he's saying that knowing this nature, they worship. And so he was just explaining that how the true worship and the knowledge go together. Without a proper knowledge, your worship will be incomplete. And then he gave a very good example. He said it's something like, worldly example he gave. Suppose, just hypothetically, that somebody invites, when Einstein was alive, say, they invited him to, as a chief guest or something. And the person who's introducing him had no clue about what Einstein had done. All his scientific achievements, he didn't know about it. So then when he will be introducing, he will be focusing on some really superficial stuff, or what clothes he's wearing, how his hair is, how Einstein's hair is all ruffled up all the time. So he will miss the point because he doesn't know about it. So same way with Bhagwan, if we superficially know, oh, God is there and all, then you will not know his glory. So that's why knowledge is so important. Vedanta is so important to learn if you want to do true worship. That's what he was. I think that was a good point he made. And then he also said that it's like gopis of Vrindavan, they loved Krishna a lot, but they also knew his greatness. They knew who he was. So it's a double thing, So that was a good example. And then he's saying that when I will know a person deeply or a Brahman deeply, then only I'll be attracted to that nature. Otherwise, it'll be very superficial, everything. And these people, once they know, automatically they will take refuge in the Devi Prakriti. And then what is worship? And then when he said worship, he also said Satatam Kirtayantam. Constantly they sing the glory of God. And, when we hear the word Kirtan, we think that somebody's doing bhajan and all. That's not what the real meaning is, because bhajan doing by speech, word, and action. That's what the real bhajan is. And then he was just saying that how in the worldly sense, we sing our own glories. Oh, ye mera ghar hai, ye mere possessions hai, ye mera achievement hai. Aisa bolte hai. Sometimes they might recognize God, the worldly people, and say, oh, Bhagwan ki daya se mula hai, but still they will sing their glory. So, what is singing glory he was talking. But the person who knows that it's Bhagwan only is behind everything, So that means that he's acknowledging the presence of Bhagwan in his life. That's what really singing the glory is, in the technical term, what he's talking about. So, and that has to be expressed through our attitude towards the world, us, and the behavior, So this is when you do, say, Kirtan. And then we went over this, that even our body, the expression of our body is, without life, it is nothing, just like a dust. So that is a glory of Bhagwan, that kind of thing. And so any action that I do also, it can be talking, walking, thinking, performing, any achievements, anything, everything is Bhagwan's glory. So that is what it means by Satatam and Sarvada, constantly and all that. So we have to understand that. And then he said few other words. He said Drudha full resolve and effort, And then they will continue until they reach that state of enlightenment with Drudha. And then he was just saying, in Sanskrit, there is one word when you really want that enlightenment so bad, it's called mumukshutvam. I want it so bad. What does that mean actually? So there is a famous drishtant. I don't know if I've discussed it before, but it's a very famous drishtant. I'll say it because it fits over here. That one time, say Vivekanand, I don't know if it actually happened or not, but drishtant is there. That somebody approached Vivekanand and saying, I don't understand that how do I get this intensity of, mumukshutva to get Bhagwan? And that time Vivekanandji was, I think, taking a bath in some river or something, and Vivekanandji is supposed to be very strong. So उन्होंने वो disciple को पकड़ा और उसको पानी के अंदर ढकेल दिया. And that disciple was very upset. What are you doing to me? Trying to kill me or what? And then फिर निकाला उसको बाहर. तो बोला कि what are you doing? So he's saying, tell me one thing. When you were underwater, what did you want? What were you thinking? So he said, I was thinking of air, I want to breathe. Anything else? No. Nothing else. Even the question disappeared. So he's saying that's called intensity. So when you feel that kind of intensity, then. So, when they're talking about these Mahatmas, that's what they have. And then they also said that they do namaskar to Bhagwan. So when we think namaskar, say, oh, paon pado, aise kuch. No, that's not what the deep meaning is. Surrender totally to Bhagwan. And that's what. And this surrender itself becomes a sadhana. This namaskar in the true sense becomes a sadhana because we drop our ego. So that's what it was all about. So, and then he was just saying, Nikhilanandji was saying that when you do namaskar, not just physically, but again by speech, mind, and entire personality, you're doing namaskar. And then he also said one very interesting thing. If a little child comes and do namaskar to you, suppose, what do? Suddenly, kitna pyar aa jata hai uske upar. You will pick him up and give him a hug, right? So he's saying that when you do namaskar to Bhagwan, you will get a hug back from Bhagwan. I thought that was really nice, And then he also said that how the person constantly does upasana. So upasana word humne bahut suna hai. It's a technical word, means to sit near somebody. It's called upasana. Asan apna kisi ke paas bithao. So he's saying that what that means in this term with Bhagwan ki upasana karna means mentally, physically and intellectually I feel the closeness with Bhagwan. Once I know who God is, the closeness with the divinity. I'm tuned to that Bhagwan. That's called upasana. So, and then how do I feel this closeness? That because we know that Bhagwan is everything, that's why I feel. So when I look at the world, I look at the world as an expression of God only and serve the world, That is worship and upasana and all that. Because if I have attitude is very important. If I think like this, oh, I'm trying to help the world, or I'm trying to save the world, then the ego comes up. As though I'm greater than the world and I'm trying to help. No. It's like, hey, the world is expression of God and I'm just serving it. That's how you have to. So that's the difference in attitude when the true upasana and all that. And so this was the summary, kind of. And now we can go to the next verse. Okay. So now the question is, what are the different ways, it's a little more explanation now. What are the different ways that the different people worship him, okay? So here's the verse. Jnana yagnena chapyanye yajanto mamupasate ekatvena pruthaktwena bahuda vishvato mukham. So this word jnana yagya, so ये पहली बार आया है यहाँ पर ज्ञान यज्ञ with the wisdom sacrifice. So when we go into the detail, we'll know what exactly it means. मतलब जो यज्ञ करते हैं ना हम लोग, उसको ज्ञान, इस चीज को ज्ञान यज्ञ बोला गया. Ch is and, api is also, anye others means other people. What do? Yajantah, sacrificing. Mam, me. Upasate, worship. Ekatvena, they worship me as ekatvena means as one. Pruthaktwena, as different. Prithak जो हिंदी में बोलते हैं. Bahuda means many. Vishvato mukham, all faced, facing in all directions, something like that, and we'll see the meaning. Okay. Something fell off here. So we saw that in the previous verses, Bhagwan was talking about, Kirtan and Drudha Vrata and Namaskar and all that. So here he's talking about that there are some Mahatmas, they worship me and do the upasana. How? By Jnana Yagnena, by Jnana Yagya. So it's saying that Jnana means everybody knows knowledge, right? So knowledge itself becomes a upasana, learning about Bhagwan and all that. And then what he was saying that how knowing and gaining the wisdom about the nature of God, that's what is this upasana about. And the more and more we understand nature of God, the more we feel closer to him, like we saw previously. So he was just saying that in contrast, the more ignorant we are, we feel far away from the divinity. As though God is somewhere there, far away, and I don't know how to reach, I don't know who it is, you feel separateness, that's what. And that's the cause of all the sorrow and pain, according to Nikhilanandji, because we have a misunderstanding, and that's why we feel. So that's why knowledge is so important, Gyan Yagya is so important. And so he's saying the more we learn, automatically, oh, God is within me. God is in everything. God is the essence of everything. Suddenly you start feeling close. This is the closest thing to me, So, and then once you realize that more and more, then the physical distance, time, place, nothing matters. God cannot get away from you. That's what it is. So he was reminding us, like we are from Chinmaya Mission, right? So Chinmaya Mission में ना गुरुदेव ने हमारे चिन्मयानंद जी ने उन्होंने काफी स्ट्रेस दिया ये ज्ञान यज्ञ के ऊपर. वो कभी भी मैंने उनको कभी भी वो ये हवन वगैरह करते हुए नहीं देखा. He always believed in doing ज्ञान यज्ञ, giving instruction on how to. That was his hallmark totally. He was not against anything else, but he really loved doing this, teaching people about. And that's why all his commentaries are so much in detail and all that. The study of the scriptures is Jnana Yajna. The scriptures talk about nature of God. So that's why, we get closer and closer because we know. So he's saying that this is what he was trying to explain, that if we don't have a proper understanding, suppose, of who God is, then we have some kind of a different attitude towards this whole thing. But the more we understand the nature, more we have our attitude changes, and that's when we feel closer, And then he was just saying that yagya, the moment we say the word koi yagya kar raha hai, to immediately wo koi, fire and ahuti वगैरह देने का दिमाग में आता है, right? So ये ज्ञान यज्ञ में वो फायर वर्क की कोई जरूरत नहीं है, according to him. जब ज्ञान यज्ञ कर रहे हो, you can do that fire work thing also, no problem. So even this Gita class is a ज्ञान यज्ञ, right? That's what it is. What we are doing yajna right now, believe it or not. So, and then he actually coined this word Gita Gyan Yajna, he used to call it. Whenever he gave a whole lecture on Gita, he called it Gita Gyan Yajna. So he's saying that knowledge itself is, उसका जो symbolism ये है कि जैसे आहुति दी जाती है, right? यज्ञ में you throw आहुति देते हैं और फिर burn हो जाती है, फिर उसका धुआं ऊपर आता है. We all know that. So he's saying क्या चीज की आहुति दे रहे हो तुम ज्ञान यज्ञ में? Symbolically you are giving आहुति of the ignorance. It's burning, your ignorance is burning in the fire of knowledge. So all ignorance, foolishness, and then you're becoming pure. Your understanding is increasing. So that is the symbolism over here. And then when the ignorant burns, that's when you realize the oneness with God, and that becomes a upasana. And then our Gurudev, he gave a very good example of fire, because यज्ञ में भी fire ही होता है. किसी suppose एक लकड़ी है, वो एकदम गीली हो चुकी है, so उसको तुम fire के पास रख दो, right? So धीरे धीरे पहले क्या होगा, उसका पानी सूखेगा. So धीरे धीरे पानी सूख जाएगा और फिर वो गर्म होती जाएगी, गर्म तो फिर अचानक उसमें आग पकड़ लेगी वो, right? आग पकड़ लेगी, फिर वो आग और लकड़ी एक हो जाते हैं. कितना सुंदर उसका बोला है, right? And then you can't even tell the difference between the fire and the wood. It becomes one. So he's saying that's what Jnana Yajna does with you. You go there and you learn, and then all your foolishness and your wrong thinking and your ignorance start getting burnt away, and eventually the highest state is you become one with Brahman. So I thought this example was absolutely brilliant one, So, so he's saying that it's like when it happens, जब वो लकड़ी पकड़ती है ना, fire एकदम से होता है, right? So he's saying that you are doing, and then suddenly one day you say, oh, Shivoham. And that Nirvan Shatkam ka, he was saying that Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. So I thought this was really great. And then he's saying, so in the beginning, it's okay. I might feel the difference and God is separate, I am separate, but it will happen if you continue to with this Jnana Yajna, And then he gave a example. I think that Nikhilanandaji loves the ocean and the waves example. So he gave this metaphor and this kind of just hypothetically think that if a wave is trying to meditate, trying to get closer to the ocean as though it is in the ocean only, but it doesn't know it. So it's trying to get over and then slowly realizes, oh, I am in the ocean only. And I am water, ocean is water. So that's what it is. That with Jnana Yajna, that's what happens. That, we are already in lap of God, but we just don't feel it, we don't know it. So that's what it is, And then you say, oh, when they declare, oh, I am everywhere. That's why Krishna Bhagwan always says me, right? So it's not the egotistic statement, but that's how he is. He's, one with that Brahman. So this is a great upasana. They are talking about Jnana Yajna. So this term is called Ekatvena. When we talk about oneness, in the verse there is no Ekatvena, Pruthaktwena. So he was trying to analyze. And different Swamis take a slightly different approach, but they all are saying something very, very important. So when we go to Chinmayanandaji's commentary, you will see that commentary is like a poetry. It is so beautiful, the commentary. But Nikhilanandaji took a slightly different approach, and he said that Ekatvain here means that highest understanding, that me and Supreme Reality are one. Okay? And then that Brahman I am, or there is one statement, Aham Brahmasmi. Right? So, uske qualification ke liye thoda sa, high-fi hona padta hai. Like, you have to have a much more purity. कोई ऐसे ही बोलने लगा I am Brahmasmi तो नहीं चलेगा. So उसके लिए थोड़ा चाहिए. These are all the saints and sages and all, they kind of pure in their mind and all that. So this is how this Ekatvain, they are worshipping that Ekatvain, and this is their upasana. And then the other one is, he was just explaining a little bit more about the Ekatvain, that me and the Brahman and the world, there is no difference in there. So they feel this total oneness and they don't allow any difference to come in. And then when we did this Upanishad, the Om Wala Upanishad jo humne kiya tha, Mandukya, usme wo Karika mein, he is like a die-hard, kya bolna chahiye, Advait Vedant. जिसमें कोई रूम ही नहीं है कि कोई और हो. Very, very high-fi. So not everybody can connect to that, which is okay, but these people do. They don't see any difference. And, Upanishad also talk about that oneness and all that. And then, so he's saying that is one. And now, let's go to the Pruthaktvaina. So, what is Pruthaktvaina? So, Pruthaktvaina is like when we look at different expressions of God and we bow down to all of them. You can say Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Indra, Ram, Krishna, Shiva, Ganesh, whoever, But we know that these are different expressions of God, but Supreme Reality is one. So that person also has an understanding, but he enjoys, different things. And I think we all kind of come in this category. When we go to the mandir over here, they have so many different murtis. We bow down to all of them. So we do, namaskar to Shiva also, to Vishnu also, and all the expressions and all that. So we see different names and forms. But he's saying that we need to know that all this is just different forms of that one reality. So even that's okay, Pruthaktvaina, to see it, But if we don't have that understanding that it is one, then there is a problem. Because then there's a competition comes in. My God is better than yours, or Shiva is higher and this one is lower, and all, all that jhagada, they do all kind of thing. So that's not a proper understanding according to Nikhilanandaji. So, and it's also possible that we might like one particular form and then we will, bow down to that, or we do the upasana and all that. And then, so that is fine. People have their favorites. And some people, he was saying that they even might worship sun, moon, or mountain, or a river. Like, I have an aunt who is going to become 100 years this year. She's going to be 100 years old. And she used to do a samudra ki upasana. She would go and put flowers and do the samudra ki puja. But she saw God in that, so that's fine. Whichever. But knowing that, there's one. So whatever the form may be, reality is one. So this is pruthaktvaena, And then the last word Bhagwan uses, Bahuda Vishwato Mukham. And means, what it means is that knowing that one God alone is an entire world. Jahan dekho wahan wohi hai. Unke itne बोलने के लिए उन्होंने एक ऐसे पोएटिक लैंग्वेज यूज किया है. बहुधा मीन्स मेनी, विश्व इज द वर्ल्ड, मुखम इज अ फेस, all faced everywhere. If somebody has to translate in English, but what does it mean that his face is everywhere? So he was just saying that अगर हमारा तो face एक ही तरफ है, तो अगर if I want to say hello to you and तुमने अपना face घुमा लिया, so I can't see your face. भगवान का ऐसा नहीं है. भगवान is everywhere, all faced. That's what, wherever you see God's face. That's what it actually means. Whatever you see God in it, because he has his face in it. Something like that, poetic way of saying it. So he's saying even if you are chanting, no matter what chant you are doing, it is his name only. Krishna ka chant ho, Shiva ka chant ho, whatever it is. So that's what it means, And then the famous verse of Tulsi Das ji, Siya Ram mai sab jag jani, karahu pranam jori jugupani. So he's saying, I'm doing namaskar to the whole world, he's saying, because I see my Ram in the whole world. Ram means that Brahman I'm seeing in this whole world. So he's saying that when you have that attitude, you don't need to go to a particular place. You don't need to look at a particular direction. North में ही होते हैं भगवान, some people get stuck in there. South में करेंगे तो कुछ गड़बड़ हो जाएगा. Nothing like that. No particular direction, no particular form, no shubh murat. You can take any time, anywhere, and he is everywhere. So he was just expanding this thought. He's saying that Bhagwan is in Purnima also and Amavasya also. So because some people will say, oh, Amavasya is a dark night and all the negative forces come, God knows, people might say all kinds of things. And then he was saying he's in Haridwar and Rishikesh and in San Diego also. So if you look at it, Bahudamukha, you don't have to go anywhere, you can do it right here. So, and then he was saying that sometimes, we have such a hard time thinking of Bhagwan in the smaller things like some animals. He's saying it's in Machhar also. Okay. So he's saying that we get so scared. Arey, Bhagwan ko Machhar bol diya. How can you do that? Means people have kind of fears and all, but to that person who has that understanding, he see Bhagwan in everything, no matter what it is, And then he was just joking. He said, that's why in our, like Puranic stories and Shastras and our Itihas and all, we have everybody. We have Hanumanji, like, he's a monkey. And then we have Ganesha, which is an elephant. Sabhi ko pranam karo. Bhagwan is in everything. I thought that was kind of interesting. Because it's the same divinity expressing through a form. And then he gave this ek phrase, beauty is in the eye of beholder. Everybody's heard this. Kisi ko koi cheez beautiful lagti hai, aur jiske, what he was trying to say, that if your mind is pure, tumko beauty dikhai degi sab cheez mein. So wo aankhon mein hoti hai beauty. That's what he was trying to say. So he's saying same way you change this phrase, that's divinity dal do beauty ki jagah. If you have divinity in your eyes, you will see everything divine only. If not, तो उसको स्वर्ग में भी भेज दो तो बोलेगा कहाँ भेज दिया मुझे. He was going to find some fault. So that's what he was trying to say, that with the knowledge, with the Gyan Yagna also, you get the knowledge, you get the proper vision, that way of looking. So that's what it is, And then he was just saying that just like you have a vision, some scientists have a vision of science. So usko har cheez mein wo atom और molecules ही दिखाई देंगे, और किसी का music में knowledge होएगा तो उसको हर एक चीज में संगीत ही दिखाई देगा. इवन नेचर की चीजों में उसको संगीत. वैसे ही we have to have that vision of divinity in us so that we see everybody. So I thought that was a good example he gave. And then he's saying that I have to develop that divinity ka vision in my heart and intellect both. You know, like so that I see it properly. That's what it is. And he's saying once you do that, then you get the ears to hear God. You know, and then there is one. I had talked about that. Maybe one of you read it. This book called Conversation with God. You know, this one person, he wrote 3 books. Conversation with God, very famous. And then so uski spiritual journey ऐसी थी कि वो he got very kind of in the worldly aspect. उसका job छूट गया, सब कुछ गड़बड़ हो गया उसका. He became really poor and he was very frustrated. And he said, I am believing you so much. Why are you doing this to me? Kind of thing. Why you don't talk to me? And उसने ऐसे frustrated होके लिखा, you know, God, you're not talking to me. And he only got the answer as though from God. He said, you are not listening. I'm talking to you every day. So then his analysis was God can talk to you not just with words. He can talk to you with the ishara. He can talk to you with some movement of a leaf, anything. But you have to have the ear to hear it. So that's what it is. That, you know, once you develop that, then, you know, you will have the ear to hear God. You will have eyes to see God. That's why you will be seeing God in everybody, you know. And so this is the upasana. Then you will have the understanding that He's close to me, you know. So, and he said that once you have that vision, you can pick up any object and feel the presence of God. Like we were talking about it, you can see miracles everywhere happening. You know, the seed coming out of the ground is a miracle, and all these different vegetables coming out. We discussed about that. And then, but one thing is there, that it's like a flower. होता है ना, flower के petals बहुत soft होते हैं. Say, oh, God is so great. Look at these petals. God is in it. No, He's in the thorn also. So it has to have a complete vision, because people pick their favorite. Oh, God is only in that. Not like that, you know. So basically what they're trying to say, that whether you worship God ekatvena, oneness, or pruthatvena, all different thing, the worship is the same thing only. And then he was just saying that when we talk about different forms of God, we always think about, oh, India में इतने सारे God हैं, right? He's saying that India को छोड़ो, पूरी दुनिया के God ले लो. वो दूसरे जो, you know, क्या बोलते हैं, दूसरे देशों में है ना, ग्रीक वगैरह में भी डिफरेंट, सबको मिला के, okay, पृथक्त्वेन, you know. And it does not matter that what it is, you know. And then he said in future कोई नए God भी आ जाएंगे. Who knows? अभी हम लोग को लगता है कि बस 4 ही रिलीजन है, बुद्धिज्म, हिंदुइज्म, इस्लाम एंड क्रिश्चियनिटी, और भी आ जाएंगे. वी डोंट नो इन द फ्यूचर. एंड वी नो कि अवतार भी बोलते, काल की अवतार आने वाला है एंड ऑल दैट, वो भी आ जाएगा. सो दिस इज व्हाट दिस श्लोका इज टॉकिंग अबाउट, दैट how. And then the next question is, how come all these things is one? He's going to give another explanation about it, you know, in the next verse. Give a little more explanation that why there is only one reality among all of us, so, or all things and all that. But this particular verse, all these points are there. Any question or comment, or anybody wants to add anything to this thought of ekatven and pruthaktven and bahuda sarvato mukham? Okay, I guess nobody has any comment. Urmilji has something. Do you?
I'm just, it opens your eyes, you know, that's all I have to say. The examples you gave, it just, I mean.
These are all Swamiji's examples, and I think that's exactly what Jnana Yagna is, you know, when, because when I was growing up also, nobody talked about these things. And you just, okay, Bhagwan hai, wahan par jaake aarti karo, bow down karo, but who God is, and I had no clue. And when they used to say, God is everywhere, and I used to wonder, what do they mean? How can one person be everywhere? Like all those, like when you're young, you don't understand all those questions. But when you study the Vedanta, it becomes clear. Slowly it becomes clear. It takes a little time. But yeah, so that's exactly what Jnana Yagna is. And he said this word was introduced. True. Any volunteers to read this? Anilji, would you like to read?
All right. Others also, offering the wisdom sacrifice, worship me in various ways, regarding me as the one, as the distinct, as the manifold me, who in all forms face up everywhere. The term Jnana Yagna cannot easily come within the accommodation of the English phraseology. The matrix of language breaks when such significant ideas are to be expressed in an equally crisp style as that of the Sanskrit. A heavy key cannot be placed in a hanging carved web, or at least we should not expect it to stay there.
I think that example says it all, that you cannot put a heavy key on a cover and fall. The same way, we already know that there are some words, like Shraddha, like Dharma, it's so big, the word, and there's so much behind it. You cannot, English language does not do justice to it. And that's why some people get so confused about the word Jnana Yagna also. But now we know, now we've had the whole explanation, that you take all your ignorance, your misconception, your crazy ideas, burn them up and purify your intellect. Who know who God is, that's Jnana Yagna. That's what he's trying to say.
Umaji, there was an example of Vivekanand, that how you have to be in this mode all the time. He was going somewhere to give a lecture. So he was sitting there and the audience was sitting there. And he's sitting there quietly, 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. He's not opening his mouth. Then one of the disciples came and whispered in his ear, and then he opened his eye. So he was in that yagna all the time, 100%.
Yeah. And you have heard of Ramana Maharishi, right? They say that he did not speak much at all. People would be hours just sit there in his... And वो जो बैठते थे ना उनके, तो उनका वो ऑरा जो भी था, spiritual power, whatever you peace they felt, and उनके question answer हो जाते थे. If you read the book I don't remember the name of the author, जिन्होंने उनको famous किया था. The guy came from some other country, I think England, and then he went there, and then he said that he had so many questions. He went on a spiritual quest in India. तो वो हर जगह घूमा, पर उसको ना realization इनके सानिध्य में हुआ. But all he did was, पहले वो गया था वहाँ पे, right? In the beginning, he was asking him so many questions. And Ramana Maharishi won't even talk. So he said, ये कैसा है साधु, बोलता भी नहीं है, इससे तो मैं कुछ नहीं सीख पाऊंगा, right? फिर वो पूरा दुनिया नहीं, पूरा इंडिया घूम के एंड में वापस गया. किसी ने उसको भेजा वहाँ पे कि तेरे आंसर वहीं मिलेंगे. तो बोला, अरे मैं तो गया था. बोला, नहीं, वापस जा. फिर वो जाके बैठा वहाँ पे. Or he said that he just sat there and he got the answers in his mind. Everything got answered. He was like shocked. So silence may be chalu hai, what you're saying. That's the truth, that it can happen.
Yagna means an offering, an oblation thrown into the sacred altar of fire in a spirit of sacrifice for the invocation and the propitiation of the deity. From this ritualism, the term Jnana Yagna has been coined, and it is generally translated by hasty compilers and cheap pundits as the sacrifice of knowledge. The abominable misunderstanding that has resulted from such a misuse is immense. Here the implication is that for the purposes of invoking the right knowledge, the false misconception in us, along with their roots in our negative tendencies, are to be plowed out, dried with dispassion, and they must be thrown into the rising flames of the newly invoked right knowledge. The destruction of ignorance, ajnana, with the fires of knowledge, jnana, is called the Gyan Yagna, the knowledge sacrifice, wherein the sacrifice is qualified by knowledge, just as in terms like fire sacrifice, land gift sacrifice, work gift sacrifice, and so on.
So we saw that, and we know now the whole idea that when Swamiji came to teach, there were so many misconceptions. I think now, dhire logon ko, because of we have a social media and all that, people are understanding a lot more. Young people are getting interested in all these things, and I think I see them, they have a lot more better knowledge of Vedanta these days. When I hear all these podcasts and all by young people, but when he came down, it was not like that. That's why he had to give this kind of explanation, detail, because they used to completely misunderstand this word Jnana Yagna. But then he explained that how when you burn your ignorance in the fire, that's what it is. So now we know what he means.
Jnana Yagna has no ritualism. It is a constant attempt on the part of the performer to see in and through the experienced names and forms, the expression and vitality of the one conscious principle, the self. The seeker here, practicing Jnana Yagna, has understood the significance of the assertion of Vedanta that the immutable self pervades all, penetrating everything, and in its homogeneous web of existence, it holds together the phenomenal multiplicity and the variegated interactions.
So it's a very, all hi-fi words are there. But basically what he's trying to say, that we already know, we have learned it by now, that how that one self pervades all, penetrating everything means it is in everything, basically, And then it's saying that self is the one that holds this whole universe together. नहीं तो वो बिखर जाएगा. और वो पूरा एक example था chapter 7 में, that the cosmos is like a necklace, and that thread is a Brahman, and all those beads are, so the necklace is held together by the thread. Thread is not there, there's no necklace, same way. So it's just understanding that whole concept, that Brahman is like a glue that holds everything together. It's a substratum. Without that, we cannot be.
And Umaji, it is true that it is in living as well as non-living things?
Absolutely. And now I hear so many people doing experiment. They tell you that water also has consciousness. They are proving it, that if you say nice sweet words, the crystals change, right? I don't know how many of you have seen that. And then I don't understand the science, physics that well, but the quantum physics में भी बोलते हैं कि that क्या बोलते हैं उसको, something molecule, or I don't know क्या बोलना चाहिए, I may be using the wrong word. When somebody is looking at it, it becomes a wave. Whoever, I don't know. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Anybody? Yeah? So
it's oscillating all the time. Yeah?
No, what I'm trying to say, and I'll try to find that video or that concept, कि कोई एक चीज को जैसे हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना कि वेव को तरंग बोलते हैं, और देन आई डोंट नो उसको क्या बोलते हैं. इट वाज समथिंग एल्स, बट इफ यू आर ऑब्जर्विंग इट, इफ देयर इज अ ऑब्जर्वर, इट चेंजेस बिहेवियर. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And I was like, wow, that means that the observing the consciousness is a very powerful thing. They thought this is all inert, right? That's what I'm trying to tell you over here. Now the science is proving it, that in the latest of it, this is the absolute latest thing, that's what it does, that if somebody is observing it, that means consciousness at the higher level is observing it, it changes. That is the most powerful thing in the world. नहीं तो दुनिया का सोचो, फायदा क्या है? कितने भी ब्यूटी होएगी, if there is nobody to observe it and appreciate it, meaningless. So that is, an observer is, ultimately it is that God only. God is experiencing it himself through all of us. So that's what
it's not that the water is changing or whatever, the wave is changing. It's how we perceive it, right? I mean, our
um,
consciousness.
see, this is what it is, that when you say that water is not changing, but वो तो scientists बोल रहे हैं water के कोई crystal होते हैं, okay? I don't know the whole science. Crystal का formation change हो जाता है. When you are saying some nice music or you're saying nice words, and the other experiment, if you must have heard, you take a plant and then you say all nice mantras and all that, it'll grow healthy and all, and you curse at it, you say bad things, मुरझाने लगेगा वो. So हम लोग को लगता है कि consciousness खाली हमारे में express है, नहीं, उनमें भी है. That's what I'm trying to get at. हमारे में सबसे ज़्यादा है, but वो भी conscious ही है. And then the people who have this near death experience होता है ना, उनको वो लोग बताते हैं कि जब when they were in that realm, उनको सब कुछ alive लग रहा था. It was like as though the flowers were talking to them. हम लोग को समझ में नहीं आता ये बात, but I know that there are some people who claim that they can converse with the animals. I have a neighbor like that. You know, she does Reiki on animals. And उसके मेरे को बोल रही थी उसके घर में fox आता है हमारे neighborhood में. I said, what? So she keeps the door open and all these animals come in her house. Sounds crazy, right? But she knows how to converse with them. She knows unke dukh dard. She knows all that. So that's what I'm trying to say, that consciousness is a very amazing thing. And people who are higher in their consciousness, they can literally connect with everything. Lot more. So what you are saying, Anilji, is absolutely true. Consciousness in and through everything. Expressions are different, you know, and that जो think that we think that are kind of inert, उनसे ही तो हमारा शरीर भी बना है, सोचो, और शरीर is alive. So that हो गया कि नहीं? बोलना चाहिए कि the boundaries become less and less as you understand this whole thing, you know. True.
Umaji, can you say that again, the last sentence? मुझे समझ नहीं आया.
Oh, boundaries become less. It's like right now I feel like separate. I feel that, you know, this air and this sky and this water is उसमें जान नहीं है.
Boundaries become less. I got it.
Yeah, but then उसका पूरा combination मिलके तो हमारा शरीर बना है. हमारे शरीर में जान है कि नहीं? You know, and then and somebody was saying that. You know, if you're talking to a water and उसका crystal बदल जाते हैं तो हमारी body में तो 70% water ही है, right? So इसीलिए अच्छी हम लोग को पता है कि कोई अच्छा हम लोग के साथ बोले तो हम लोग को कितना different होता है, हमारे सारे hormones वगैरह सब change हो जाते हैं, become positive. If somebody is giving us galis constantly, we feel bad. So that inert sharir में भी there is a consciousness is there. That's what we were trying to say, you know.
You know, Sadhguru was explaining that how we should treat water. कि जिस मटके में हम पानी को रखते हैं, उस मटके को ऊपर रखना चाहिए, उस पे टीका लगाना चाहिए, और उस पे फूल रखना चाहिए.
और सब करते थे पुराने जमाने में लोग.
पुराने जमाने में सब करते हैं.
हाँ.
आजकल हम पानी का जार नीचे रख देते हैं चेयर के, और उसी में से पानी पीते हैं. It is a different effect.
True. So if they had a reason because of this, because if you and then forget about everything else, okay? You think of it this way: if we have respect for the nature and we treat it respectfully, we get the good results. You know, if you throw trash everywhere, now we know even the environmentalists say the same thing now. You pollute the nature, it will slap back at you because it's like it's angry at you. You know? So, but if you treat it nicely, it will treat you nicely. So,
chocolates made by different firms, irrespective of their shapes and colors, flavors and prices, are all chocolates, and therefore their essential nature of sweetness is common to all of them. And the child who is seeking the sweetness of the chocolates will enjoy them, whatever be their shape, the size, or the packing.
So he proved it. It's like, you know, but you know, when we were little kids and we didn't know, तो हम लोग लड़ते थे ना, with different candies होती थी shape की, मेरे को यही चाहिए. I want because they think that उसमें कुछ ज़्यादा sweetness है. But once you know it's the same, once you put it in the mouth, it's the same. So that's what it is.
Similarly, a seeker of the self watches for, observes and detects the expression of the self in all names and forms, in all situations and conditions, whatever be the setting in which some diamond's bits are held together. To a diamond merchant, all of them are so many heavy points of brilliance and light, and he will evaluates them for the weight of light contents in each one of them, and not for the design or proportion of the ornament.
So he's saying he's going for the essence. He's looking at the diamond. He's not looking at the setting. And then there is another drishtanta that this person had a, murti, सोने की बनी हुई मूर्ति थी गणेश जी की. And the Ganesh ji का वाहन चूहा होता है ना. So he had the murti and he had the chuha. So he took both of them to the goldsmith and he said, मेरे को इसका value दो. तो उसने value बताया. तो उसने बोला नहीं ये गणेश जी का ज़्यादा दो मुझे. Because गणेश जी हैं ये तो चूहा है. मेरे को नहीं मालूम गणेश जी चूहा. I'm just going to give you gold का price. गणेश जी हो चाहे चूहा, मेरे को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. That's what it is,
To a true musician who has an ear for melody, it is immaterial whether the singer is a cowherd urchin sitting on the grassy banks of some stagnant pool, singing on a wild reed, or is he a decorated court musician sitting in a palace chamber, luxuriously laid with the costliest carpets of the world, and singing on the finest and the best made instruments. For one who is a lover of good music and who seeks the thrilled hush of joy that is experiences when he gets wafted away from the ephemeral upon the beams of melodious tune, artistically executed, to him there is a melody in the cooing of the birds, in the hummings of the beetles, in the croaking of the frogs, in the running streams, in the roaring oceans, even in the passing breeze as it rustles along the naked branches of the autumn trees.
I told you that Swamiji has become a poet over here at the highest order. So see,
Swamiji, this is so amazing.
Yes.
When you really think about it, and you start enjoying everything that is around you.
Yes, that's what it is. Before I started Chinmaya Mission and all that, I used to be so scared of like lizards and all that. It's not like I want a lizard in my house or nothing like that. But if I see them, I don't feel that repulsive feeling anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's there. It's just jumping around and they're fine. Just do its own thing, So that's what it is. That it is just what you said. That's what happens. There's nothing to dislike in this world anymore then. If you really truly believe in this, True.
A man of realization moves about the world, seeking his own self, expressed through every moment and action, word and thought that clusters around him at all times, at every hand. Just as one light in the midst of 1,000 mirrors comes to provide crores of reflections everywhere, so too the one centered in the self, when he walks out into the world, sees everywhere his own self dancing and shooting glances at him from all around at once, thrilling him always with the homogeneous ecstasy of perfection and bliss.
So they're talking about this highest state when they don't see any difference, but it is so beautifully explained that it is just, if you have so many mirrors, but they're all reflections, just like we are all reflections of that same. Or the sun is there, and the light is everywhere, reflecting in different ways.
And that's why a self-realized person is always in a joyful
Always.
mood.
Always. अगर कोई उसको गाली भी देता है तो बोलता है, oh my God has come. He will be smart. Like Buddha. Buddha never get faced by anyone.
In the winking of the eyes, in the smile of a friend, in the grin of an enemy, in the harsh words of jealousy, and in the soft words of love, in heat and cold, in success and failure, among men, among animals, amongst the trees, and in the company of the inert, everywhere he successfully gains the auspicious vision of the Supreme, either as existence pure or as knowledge absolute or as bliss infinite. This is the meaning of Ishwar Darshan or the Atma Darshanam, which is sung so gloriously in all the scriptures of the world. To watch for and discover the smile of the divine through the trellis of the names and forms is to live in the constant spirit of Gyan Yagna.
So yeah, he told you the essence of Jnana Yagna, Ishwar Darshan, Atma Darshan, same thing. And then he said it this, right? Sentence, existence pure, knowledge absolute, or bliss infinite. You know what this is? Sat Chit Anand ko unhone English mein translate kiya hai, you know. Sat is that existence pure, and Chit is that knowledge absolute, and then Anand is that bliss infinite. Sorry, क्या कहा नरेश जी?
उसे मैंने आपको वही जो आपने बोला वही बोला.
Yeah, Satchidanand.
To adore him in all visions, to recognize him in all situations, to feel him with each thought is to live in a constant remembrance of the self. And therefore, such people worship the self through the wisdom sacrifice, Gyan Yagna.
And this also ties very well with the previous verse, right? Satatam kirtayantam mam. Oh, yeah.
And he translated Gyan Yagna, wisdom sacrifice.
Right. So, you know, but the real meaning is that ignorance is burnt and the wisdom is gained. Yeah.
Right. In the beginning, the attempt of seeing the self is a conscious act, not without the unpleasant strain. But as the seeker develops in his own spiritual cognition of the self, the awareness divine in his within, it becomes easy for him to recognize the one self is splashing itself upon the myriad forms of its own effulgent glory, me who in all form face up everywhere.
So he's just giving the explanation on the Sarvata Mukham, and we discussed it, that how, you know, God's face is everywhere. And I think there was one lady in our study group back in Houston, and, you know, she was saying that how, you know, some relatives you have, sabki family mein hota hai, were very annoying maybe to you. Each person, we may be annoying to somebody else, I don't know. But suppose if some annoying person comes and it's like, you know, usko dekh ke chid hoti hai, gussa aata hai, to that time I used to just think of Krishna Bhagwan ka chehra uske upar. Okay, you know, then I used to feel better. Usme bhi Krishna Bhagwan, sab mein Krishna Bhagwan ka chehra laga do. So even the annoying people become like, okay, fine, you know. So I thought she had a very good technique.
You know? That's a great one.
Yeah.
The man of realization not only experiences the pure self, uncontaminated by the pluralistic equipments, but also recognizes the same self as playing through the endless variety of conditionings available in the universe. Having known the one sun in the sky, even if we see 1,000 reflections of the same in different equipments, in all of them we see and recognize only the one sun.
So Swamiji has given so many examples in this. He just didn't want to, you know, leave any stone unturned. He says, "Sab kuch bata do isme," because he must be feeling so passionate about, because he knows Gyan Yagna was his passion, complete passion for him. So that's why he's giving so many. And the funny thing is, when we see the reflection of the sun in the world, we know it's the same sun. But we have such a hard time seeing that Brahman in everybody. You know, that's the problem. Yeah.
तो मोहन जी इन्होंने एक चीज कही ना इससे पहले वाले पैराग्राफ में कि शुरू में इससे conscious act,
right,
not very pleasant,
right,
but once you get into it,
right,
same thing music. Many people don't enjoy music, but they start listening to it,
correct,
then they cannot do without.
Absolutely. Like when I was younger, I did not appreciate the classical music. Abhi itna acha lagta hai ki, you know, pucho mat, because I think we have a better understanding and we know it calms your mind and things like that, you know. But when you are the teenager and from Mumbai, you want the rock music that can make your mind go crazy.
To your point, I never enjoyed opera music. maybe 40 years ago. Now I totally love it,
Exactly, because I think now there is some divinity in it, because when they're trying to do it, it's a lot of practice and not everybody can do, and that sound, I think that आपने ही डाला था ना वो लेडी का, वो डॉक्टर क्या नाम था उसका, श्वेता का, उसने बोला ना कि ये सब म्यूजिक वगैरह से हमारे वेव्स चेंज होते हैं, म्यूजिक से. Great, I dropped the water. I always do that. And then music say, and shlokas and all these mantras and all. Can you guys just give me 1 minute? I want to bring a towel and just put it here. My water fell down. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah.
Self-realization in Vedanta is not at all complete if the realized one can keep his composure and equanimity only in solitude and silence. If he recognizes and experiences the divine only at some rare moments of his transcendental experiences, then he is not the man of wisdom glorified by the rishis of the Upanishads. This is not the way of the yogis. A man of true knowledge is he to whom the self alone is the truth within, without and everywhere. The one pervades all and nothing pervades it. To him, a marketplace of the busiest tension is as much a conducive place for cognizing the self as the quiet Himalayan valleys and their deep caves of roaring silence. With his eyes closed or shut, he from the balcony of the infinite in himself gazes out to experience nothing but his own self everywhere.
So beautifully he explained, right? That you don't need a special place, anything, and it can be Himalayan valleys. A person who has understood this can connect it anywhere. That's what he was trying to say. And then also there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2 when he was explaining, when Arjuna asked that how does a man of realization behave in this world? How does he talk? How does he interact with the world? And those verses, it said, this person, he engages with the world. He's not sitting in his cave. He completely engages and good, bad, everything he goes into. And then, but he keeps that awareness with him about God. That's what he was trying to say. Mm-hmm.
It does not mean that there is any sanction in stupid myth that is being nourished among us, that a man of realization, as he gazes out into the world, for him, the names and forms melt into thin vapor, the walls disappear from the gaze, and the words whirl around him to dissolve into nothingness. This is absurd. The fact that such trash is being broadcast even by some of the responsible men and institutions, and that there are pundits who not their assent to them, shows the desperate condition of the fall that the science of truth has come to suffer in the general decadence of the culture.
I think the Swamiji really blasted everybody when he said, it's not like the world disappears. World is going to be there. You just know it's an illusion. That's all, right? It's like when we are watching a movie and we get totally sucked into it and we will start crying and then, no, it's a movie. So now I know. Then I will not feel so bad. That's what, it doesn't disappear, but I just know what it is. That's what he's trying to say.
It's very similar, Umaji, when you go to a temple, all your problems that existed a minute before are not there at that time. When you come out, they come back again.
Because we think that only मंदिर में ही भगवान है तो इसलिए मेरे को शांति मिल जाती है, अगर मुझे पूरा दुनिया अगर मंदिर दिखेगा तो सब जगह ऐसा ही होएगा. Think about it. I've just expand my mandir to the everything. So that's what we need to do. That's what he's trying to say. Mm-hmm.
In my legs as well as in my hands, I pervade equally at all moments. I know I am there. To say that this knowledge makes my hands and the legs disappear as mist disappears at sunrise is a ridiculous lunacy and not the assertion of a true science. Just as I permeate, fill in, exist, enjoy, and experience in and through every little portion of my body, all through my waking hours, at one and the same time, so too the man of realization realizes that at all times